the launch of Portals of Presence, my new deck. Here it is. And I'm going to be sharing all kinds of stories today about how the drawings were created, how I selected them, magical journeys where some of them were created. I'm going to show you how I do the touch drawings. That's the first thing I'll be doing. And then share all the images in the deck where I play live music. So this is a really big day for me. Thank you for coming and joining this special time. We're going to begin with a very 2-minute brief flow and sharing about what the deck is about that I've created. And then I'm going to demonstrate touch drawing for you so you can see how I create these faces. So let's go right now into the video. Portals of Presence. Faces drawn from the subtle realms. Approach this deck with an open mind and heart. It is not an oracle in the usual sense. It's an invitation to develop relationship with the great community of life. May these faces drawn from the heart of the world open portals to the subtle worlds, reminding us of the wholeness within which we reside. Gaze at these beings and allow your experience to unfold. Thank you. So I'm going to begin by sharing touch drawing and the state of being it is to create these faces. So I'm just going to move myself back here and have you face my drawing board, which is right below me. So this is a smooth board. It's been used before, so I have paint on it. And I already put the wet paint on, so I dabbed my wet paint. I didn't want you to take all this time seeing my paint tube, but I've rolled it smooth already, so I'll do one more roll. So it's a smooth surface of paint. And then the paper I'm using today is the paper I use for teaching. The drawings were done on a heavier paper, but I'm using this so you can really see more clearly how I do these drawings. So especially when I'm focusing on faces, I first feel my own face, my own presence. And all of these varied faces in the deck that you just saw briefly were done through the inner sensation in my own face. Right now, I'm going to talk how I feel. I feel to start with the inner sensation in my eyebrows. So I'm moving my fingernails, and you can see with this paper, because it's so thin, everywhere that I'm touching, the marks are coming right out of my fingertips onto the paper. Sometimes I touch with my fingernails. Sometimes I touch with my fingertips. And I'm following the flow that I feel inside my own face in response to also what I'm seeing, like it's an inner mirror. Every face in this deck was drawn this way. And you can see, as much as the human face is unique, it's also a pattern that's very universal. There's the pattern of eyes, nose, and mouth. And when I'm doing these drawings, as I share stories with you in a few minutes, I don't think I'm always drawing an actual human. I think that I'm translating senses, a sense. It's a meeting place, and I'm translating into the familiar language that humans can read, which is the language of the human face. It is the most universal pattern that we bond to when we're born. And that is, I think, the power. We don't need to speak any verbal language to be able to read subtlety in a face. And when I'm connecting with something that's not necessarily human, like a presence in nature, I think what I'm doing is translating that presence into the familiar language of a human face. Because I don't think subtle beings really need a face, but that's a way they can reach out to us. So here we go. This is one that wanted to happen. So that's touch drawing. I teach the process as well. I give online workshops now. And it is the way I created every single face that you will see today. So does anyone have a question? Because this is live. If there's any questions, I'll take a question or two about the process. And if not, I'll just move right into the story. So many of you are familiar with the soul cards. I created, the first deck was published in 1995, and Soul Cards 2 was published in 2000. For those of you familiar, I've actually just changed the cover of Soul Cards 2. These are all touch drawings. These are touch drawings that I had evolved and refined the process to adding layers of color, via the process of touch drawing, working very slowly, and also having washes of color. So there are many dimensions to each one of the images in soul cards. All the fine creating of the face and the sculpting of the nose and the mouth and the hands was done with my fingernails and fingertips. The washes may be done in different ways, but these are really touch drawings, but they're done very slowly. Like the figure in this one was actually done by moving the board from a red to a blue to a sort of a yellow gold and rubbing with my fingertips those different layers of color. So I had moved from what I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes is my first touch drawings. But you'll see the soul cards were an evolution to a real refinement of imagery. And they were not intended to be a deck. They were just the work I did in the studio over many, many years. And I selected, so it was a similar process. I looked at all hundreds and hundreds and thousands of images, and I selected from among all of the works that I had done in this area of my work, and tried to choose the fullest range of human emotion and states of being as I could find within my own body of work to create Soul Cards 1 and Soul Cards 2. I included, rubbing, flowers onto the board and leaves sometimes. So there are many ways I could tell you each soul card a little bit different about how that one was created. But here is a pure touch drawing, I would say, just done in one sitting, one layer, quickly, like the one I demonstrated for you. And this one expresses the feeling of doing a touch drawing, where my hands, it's like the lines are coming directly from my fingertips. Now we're going to go back in time to the story of faces, and the power of creating faces in my life, and why this deck came into being, and why I feel it's a major life work to bring these faces out. This is a charcoal drawing I did in when I was 16 years old. I don't know what year that was, but no, I was 14. I was teaching myself how to draw with charcoal and how to shade. And I was drawing fashion models in magazines like a 14-year-old would do in the 60s. And but I found this little Inuit child in a fashion magazine where they were showing fur coats, and I zeroed in on this face. This was a new level. I wasn't just copying fashion models. I felt a presence that touched me in the expression of this child's face. And I was drawing it on the floor. It was actually a very big drawing. And at a certain point when it was coming into form, I felt like it was alive. I felt like someone was looking at me. And it scared me a little bit. It was so real. And I was dancing in circles, walking in circles around this drawing on the floor and saying, why are you looking at me? Why are you looking at me? So that is core to what the portals of presence are about. And at 14 years old, I had an experience. So some people might find the portals a little scary. Do you really feel like there's someone there looking at you? But it's that fear of the unfamiliar, of something emerging that's bringing us to a new level of awareness. So then again, precursors to the portals deck and the power of creating faces. I found this drawing that I had done in high school. I did lots of interesting drawings with rapidograph pens, but this one is so much like what it's like to feel like I'm receiving a being and I'm feeling them come into my face or leave some impression in my face. I never feel taken over by anything. I just feel subtle, energetic impressions, and I try to trace them. It's a very gentle thing, and I can give them form on the paper through movement, like I demonstrated. That's what it feels like in many ways. And I drew that in, I don't know, when I was maybe 15, 16 years old, 17. I did lots and lots of drawings of hands coming out of heads. And again, looking back, I realized that it's almost like I wanted to express directly what's in my head out through my hands. These hands are sort of passive in all these drawings, waiting for touch drawing. And here is a discovery that's very, very recent for me. That's me on the right playing Helen Keller, and with Cheryl Snyder, who played Annie Sullivan. And in high school, I was in 10th grade. And my sister recently found some old reels of 8mm film, and she sent them to me to find a place to get them digitized. So I didn't even know this existed. Playing Helen Keller, the deaf and blind child in the play about her, called The Miracle Worker, was a seminal life experience, and I've known it was seminal. But I only, when I found these recently and was putting this program together, did I realize, here I am touching her face. This is how Helen Keller and how I experienced knowing what she was feeling, by touching her face, and by then touching my own face and mirroring her expression and feeling it in my own face. And here she's teaching me, she's smiling and teaching me, and I am mirroring it in my own face and then feeling it in my own face. So this was quite a revelation of a thread from my past brought forward into the present, the precursor to the power and the almost a life calling or a training that I was in, to be able to translate through touch, through my fingertips, this sense of the presence of the face of another. And here's other images. These are the story of faces before touch drawing. When I was 16, I would sometimes go out into the woods and bring a board and my paints. And on this day, when I created this face, I just took a nap. I dozed off in the forest. When I woke up, I was just gazing up at the glowing green, and I got up and I painted this face, just expressing how I felt in the oneness of nature. And you will see how that's a part of this deck as well. So then I went to New York City and I went to art school, and that's me in art school in my studio, where I had gone head on into the abstract minimalism, conceptualism, 4 years immersed in New York in the art world. And I do think that also was a preparation. First of all, I completely let go. I let go of any attachment to creating an image. And it was very process oriented, which is related to the process of touch drawing, and very contemplative. But by the end of my time, I was wondering, I was trying to find myself again, that original self that used to create more directly and express my soul. And this is a doodle I did in my last year in school. And if you see in the upper right, what's wrong with drawing faces? And then I doodled all these stupid little faces in my last year in art school, about to get my BFA in art. It felt like doing a dirty drawing. It was really embarrassing, but I gave myself permission. And I think that is a point to take. When we give ourselves permission to just make something real in our own minds, I think something is germinated. Because I feel like there was a germination of my whole life and the process of touch drawing in this moment of permission to ask that question and allow myself to do something I had sort of blocked off for 4 years. And so that is touch drawing. Emerged on my last day. It came to me on my last day in my last year in art school, 1974 in New York City. I was helping a friend in the print shop where they have plates of glass with ink rolled out on it. And he asked me to help clean up. And so I took a paper towel and I laid it on the glass. And in that moment, there's more detail to the story I share in the story of touch drawing. But in essence, I thought, I'm just going to play. I moved my fingertips on the back of the paper towel, lifted it, and saw these marks made by the squiggly movement of my fingertips on the paper towel. And now I'm going back in time here, back in time, because when I moved my fingertips on that paper towel and saw that marks were coming directly onto the paper, I went back. I could feel suspended in the present, between the past and the marks on the handprints on the cave wall. The handprints that humans made on the cave walls all over the earth. This most universal human statement. And these touch drawings, making these marks on paper with my hands directly, felt like a process that was being given to me from outside of time. That's a suspension in time feeling, and being kind of dropped into me to offer to the future. And that this was a process, not just for my own self, but for humans on this universal level to express our consciousness in the future. So all that happened in these instants where I was kind of cracked open, laughing hysterically, picking up more paper towels on the floor, looking like I'd kind of freaked out, and drawing these like childlike drawings at the same time that I knew this was something bigger than my personal self. But I recognized that power in the pure childlikeness, the freedom of that. So I started drawing faces. What's wrong with drawing faces? I didn't think about that doodle, but that's where this doodle that I had done just maybe 2-3 months before was coming alive in the faces I could draw in touch drawing with my 2 hands, like I demonstrated. These were my first touch drawings. This was the level at which I drew these faces, but they had an incredible life and purity. So I don't know how many I did. I still have the paper towels. There's a big pile of paper towels. I don't know, 40, 50 drawings on paper towels that day. marked the beginning of just this calling in my life to share the process. But first, I did it, and I did it in a way. It was my survival. It was my psychological survival, really, the survival of my psychic structure in this time where everything was sort of dissolving my sense of what's really important, what's real in life. I was listening to the moment and walking around New York City. It was a summer right after discovering touch drawing. I didn't have a lot of psychic structures. I just sort of like opened up, and I could come home at night and do touch drawing and do faces over and over. So these are the faces that are becoming more energetic than those first ones. The first ones are cartoony. This is a few weeks into touch drawing, maybe 3 weeks of touch drawing, where they're more energy impressions. These specific drawings I did on a night that I thought I was going to die. I share that story in a little more depth in my story about touch drawing you can find on the website. But creating with that feeling and being able to just face into that feeling and create moment to moment kept me stable, kept me safe in my own psyche. And I woke up that next morning feeling like I was in a new life, and I had faced into something. I didn't understand that maybe it was a psyche death, but that's what I was doing in that night. And I woke up and I just felt like a new birth the next morning. But the willingness to face into it, touch drawing provided me that safe place to be moment to moment. And now here's a touch drawing that I did not that much longer after, maybe a couple of years after. It's part of a larger series. Again, I share some of this in the longer stories, but the reason I want to share it here is that because very early, this would be in the late 70s, this was a being coming to me through touch drawing. This was a face of a being that was not me expressing myself, but that was coming through. And I see this now as a very Christ-like presence. It's not something I conceptualized at all. I didn't think twice about it when I did it. It was only looking back through old drawings that I discovered this and recognized that something was already coming through. And so now we're going to fast forward into the stories of the Faces in the Portals of Presence deck. Here I am sitting at the edge, overlooking a waterfall on a hike near my house. I live near the Cascade Mountains. So I lug my drawing boards with me, my drawing materials with me in a shoulder carrier. I'll share a photo a little later in this. Here I am rolling the ink you see on the drawing board like I demonstrated, and I'm just drawing in the presence of nature. So many of the images in the deck were created outside in nature, in sacred sites. Here I am hiking to the sort of the bottom edge of Mount Rainier, this great volcanic mountain in my region. And again, I carry my drawing board on my shoulder in a case, and I sit down and draw. And sometimes it's challenging and windy. Here I am under an ancient yew tree. And I'll share some specifics in a couple of minutes, but this is the general idea. Also in sacred sites, this is Rosslyn Chapel. I asked someone to just take a photo of me while I was drawing. I've had several retreats where I've drawn in Rosslyn Chapel. And I've also sat at the back of, this is the crypt. And here I am again, that roller. I'm holding my camera in one hand and rolling in the other. I've also drawn at so many conferences, I've lost count. After 500 different human beings that I've drawn while they speak, I stopped counting. And that was a long time ago, I stopped counting. So it could be up to 900, 1,000 different human beings, maybe sometimes giving very short talks, sometimes longer talks. See me in the lower right, where I sit and I listen to presentations. I feel their presence, I listen to their content, and I translate that into images. And among them are faces. And again, I selected some to be in this deck. Here I am at the Co-Creative Spirituality Conference at Findhorn. And I'm just pulling a drawing that I've done off the board while someone is speaking. That's from my point of view, what it's like to sit and do this. And now we'll get to some very specifics in the story. This is the Seeds of Compassion. This was quite a number of years ago. The Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and Desmond Tutu were, the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, among other people, were sharing stories of the people who modeled compassion for them in their lives. A very beautiful presentation. I asked permission of the organizers to come and draw, and they gave me a spot in the press booth. So all around me, you see a computer behind me. There's also cameras with long lenses, and I'm the cosmic press there. This is a drawing that's in the deck that I did during that presentation. So these are some very specifics. In the deck itself, I do not identify them. I say in the back, I list circumstances and people that they were drawn in the presence of, but I don't identify what's what. This is a little secret story I'm sharing, but don't get attached to it because they may want to serve in other ways. They are portals, and they may be used by other beings. This is the Fairy and Human Relations Congress. I have felt very supported by them in the creation of this deck because that's what this conference is about. We gather, and it's a calling to invite communion and deeper opening of relationship and opening of that boundary so it becomes more potential for the Western human who has lost touch with that level of life and consciousness to come back into relationship with all the multitudes of subtle beings on the planet and beyond the planet. So here I am, touch drawing in that beautiful meadow that I just showed you a photograph, but it's dusk. And I had just finished doing this touch drawing. I just plopped down in the middle on Saturday night in the middle of the field while everyone's out dancing in the meadows. And I try and attune in my way. I don't see beings. I don't see a bunch of fairies dancing or angels amongst us. There are people who do have visual experiences, auditory experiences. For me, it is somatic. And I have to sit in the focus of touch drawing. And the feeling at Fairy Congress is sometimes like for the subtle beings who are gathered at this event, it's their chance to try on a human face. And you know how sometimes there's a face painter at a party? It's like I'm the face painter for the subtle beings and letting them try on a human face. That's sort of my metaphor for this. So someone came along, Ruth came along and snapped a picture when I had just done this drawing and pulled it over and saw it for the first time. And it's one of the most precious and real photos of me having just created a touch drawing in a circumstance. So this being is in the deck. This was done at Fairy Congress as well. And here, that's the image you see behind me when I'm back up when I'm on screen right here. We created these big silk banners. So the silk banner behind me right now is up there in use during an event on Saturday night. So it's wonderful. They've come full circle, making the images, making the beings visible for the people to use them at this event. It's been a great joy to do that. Now here is a Sema of the Whirling Dervishes. That's my husband whirling in the right. And we'll just let this play for a moment where I do touch drawing. And here I am. I've sat at many, many semas. This is the sort of the mystic line of the Sufis. And I draw many times, I'm trying to capture the feeling of the energetics of the whirling. But among the series of drawings that I do, there are usually at least a couple of faces. So again, in creating this deck, I was looking for these streams of wisdom lineages and this range of possibilities to bring together in one large cosmic council of faces. And here is the one of the faces I've done. a face that came out of this deep Sufi Mevlevi lineage of spirit and being that's in the deck. And I had to choose from so many thousands altogether to create this deck. Here I am with Sister Lucy Kurian from India. She is a light-hearted Saint Teresa. That's my little nutshell handle for her. She has created homes for, I don't know, I think there's like 1,500 children now, each in homes. And she started with taking women who were abused and creating homes for them. And she is just such a blessing in the world. And I have been blessed to have a connection with her and hope to visit when COVID is over. But here I am. I've been at many events with her in the United States. This is a small retreat. And the young man is one of the young people that she, who's holding the drawing here, who she brought up from the time he was a little boy. The first wave of children that she took and created homes for. And he's holding a drawing, this circle of drawings we put out where I'd been drawing while she was speaking and sharing stories about her work. And he picked that one up and he just wanted to hold it and show it. And the interesting thing was that that one found its way into the deck. So you could see the living situations in which these are translations of presence and energies into faces. So we're going back into Rosslyn Chapel now. It's outside of Edinburgh, Scotland. Here I am taking a selfie of the ceiling. I've been there, I think, 5 times over the years. Somehow life has brought me there for various different reasons at different times. So at this point, I accept that this is a place for me in my life. So the drawing here that's in the deck is one I did the first time I ever went to Rosslyn Chapel. And while I was sitting in just that spot, I think I went back years later, sat in that spot and took a selfie, because the first time I went, I wouldn't have had an iPhone to take a photograph. And then I'm also going to share what it's like to sit, that still photograph I showed you at the back of the crypt. I sit on a lot of cold floors. This is the crypt. Beautiful resonant sound. I've also sung there. If you go to my website, you can find my music, a couple of clips of singing in these places. And this is a face that I did inside that crypt. Again, there's quite a few to choose from that made it into the deck. And another clip. This is drawing underneath a yew tree outside of Rosslyn Chapel. This very beautiful ancient yew tree is there. I just did that touching like I described. I'm pulling it off the board. And I just laid the drawing down on the tree. So the yew trees. I've studied with Michael Dunning, who's teaches the yew mysteries. I've actually been and studied with him in Wales. This was me touch drawing in Wales when my husband and I went on a journey to visit ancient yew trees, and he had told us where we could find them. So I'm so grateful for my husband to drive along all these narrow roads, following into these obscure little places and old churchyards that were built in the center of these ancient circles. The trees are way older than the churches. And I think they built the churches there to change what happened in those circles of ancient trees. And here is what it's like. I took this of the drawing board in front of that tree. That was my view when I'm touch drawing. And here is one of the faces I drew beneath that tree. Again, I always had to do select. There could have been others, but it represents that ancient field of life, and it also can hold and invites whatever wants to speak through it to the person who is sitting with this being. And this is another ancient yew tree. They are remarkable. They might be multiple thousands of years old. It's difficult to date them. They are very different in how they grow. And here's a trip to Iona in Scotland. So somehow these Celtic lands have called me. And it's a sacred isle, has a long history, many levels. I have had a couple of retreats there. This was a 10-day retreat. So I would wander around on the hillsides, spending more time outside than in those buildings, searching all the sacred sites. There's a place where they list on a map the chakras of Iona. So I went searching for them, great adventures. But every night I would sit and do touch drawing in my little room. That's my seat, that's my table. And on the floor is a touch drawing that I had just created. Isn't it lucky that I happened to take a photo? And that was one that really wanted to be in the deck. And this is one related that's also in the deck. I also went into St. Oran's Chapel. I didn't draw in the chapel. My evenings were for drawing, but I sang in the chapel every night at dusk. And on my website, on the page about my song baths, the intro page, I have clips of singing in Roslyn Chapel and also singing in St. Oran's Chapel, where both spaces, the sound is so beautiful and resonant. And here's another touch drawing I did that maybe seems to capture some of that spirit. I did that on Iona. Lots of drawings because I had 10 days there. So, and I wasn't drawing only faces. I went searching in these series for the faces that were there. And I had a wonderful trip to Iona. To Guatemala, sorry. It was a wonderful trip to Iona. Just a few years ago, I was blessed. I met Tata Pedro Ruiz and Nana and his wife. And I went to a ceremony they were leading. And then after it was over, they invited me to take a journey to some of the temples that they were just making a personal journey. And because he's a priest, he was able to do the fire ceremony on these little altars. We're in Tikal here. And he knew that I did touch drawing, and I had done touch drawing during things when we were together before. So he just like, well, I'll do my ceremony, you do yours. Touch drawing was my ceremony, my ritual to do, and to have it contexted in that way by him was a really beautiful thing. So this is one that I did in Tikal. Then we went further north to it's an ancient observatory where I did touch drawing. It really felt far on the edge. The road ended here. In the booklet, I list the names of all these places. It's a little much for my brain to go through all the names while I'm sharing the story, but this was created in that temple. So remember I said, I would share about, how I carry my drawings. All of these journeys to the temples, that was hiking up Mount Baker. Here I am on the top of Mount Pilchuck doing a touch drawing. This is a little viewing tower. So this is a rare opportunity. I got to be out of the wind, and I actually set my camera up. It was a little easier situation. And just watch me do the drawing. So this is just like you saw me demonstrating, but you see how it's a heavier paper. I can see what I can see. If you look closely at the paper, you can see that impression. It's just easier when I do it on tissue when I'm demonstrating online. But I can tell what I'm doing. And I'm lifting this off now. I took it out to blow in the wind. I knew this was one special. I did a few there. When I did this one, I just it's like that feeling of rightness when this is alignment in the translation. Maybe I did an okay translation here. And this is the amazing spot where we can see all of the great volcanoes in all directions from the top of Mount Pilchuck. I can actually see Mount Pilchuck when it's not cloudy from the spot I'm sitting across the water. And of course, this being wanted to go into the deck. And here I am at the Parliament of World Religions. I showed a couple of photos before of drawing at conferences. To me, this was the greatest event where people from all world religions are coming together. The most diverse group of humans, all there for goodwill, not there for politics, to talk about what we have in common and really to look at all the challenges. All the themes of the presentations are the challenges in the world and how religious people can step up to the plate with their ethics and help and work together. And so you could see how there were a lot of drawings. You look down the line, a lot of drawings. I also have presentations on my website. If you dig around in the galleries, presentations of all these situations where I drew, and this one has little videos in the midst of doing the drawings. I'll show one of them here today. Someone took a photo of me. I'm sitting again. It's always these cold cement floors, cold cement floor in a giant hall. And here is my point of view, just pulling the drawing off the board. I remember the days when being Indian was illegal, yeah. While someone is singing, chanting. I went over there so you could see her a little bit better. Very, very strong presence of First Nations, Indigenous people, Indigenous religions at this conference. All you warriors of love, all you answers to the prayers of our ancestors from above, I can feel it in my heart. And this is another conference, the Dawn of Interspirituality. It's where I met Sister Lucy. This is like a more intimate, personal version of the Parliament of World Religions, where a small group of people from all religions come together. On the left, you'll see Shaman Don Alberto Ataxo from Ecuador in the orange. And on the right, the beautiful elder woman, Abuela Margarito from Mexico. I will share touch drawings that I did while they spoke. And you'll see as the conference is going on, I'm hanging the drawings here on windows. So it's different in every setting. But here she is, so beautiful. Bless her, she passed on maybe a year ago, that she was able to go to the conference. It wasn't that long ago. It's just a couple of years ago. And I am so lucky. I don't have that many photos of doing these things, but she came over to see the drawings. There's her translator, helper, and I'm showing her the drawings that I did and happened to have out and visible this face that also made it into the deck. And then here's the other, Shaman Don Alberto Taxo. And here's a drawing I did while he was speaking. So I'm feeling their presence and translating whatever energetics they're carrying onto the paper, just like that touch drawing I did in the demonstration for you when we began. But you can see how I can go deeper and deeper as I really stay with this process. So now the story of the deck and how it came into being. When I came back, actually 2018, and I came back from the Parliament of World Religions, this is a photograph of a screenshot of me when I did a live YouTube conversation with Simon Harrison in the Hermit's Cave, who I had met because he reviewed and talked about the soul cards online. He worked with them for many years as part of his personal healing process and became one of those wonderful YouTube personalities who does deck reviews and conversations with people and conversations with deck creators and things. I had thought about creating a deck with faces since the early 2000s. I had created what I'm holding there is my first prototype deck. First prototype of the Portals of Presence. It didn't have a name. I think I made that in 2007. I had brought it out, shared it with some people, and it sort of fell flat, this prototype. So I didn't know if it'll work. I knew I had so many faces. I knew there was something powerful about them. I thought I'd make a deck, and then it sort of receded. It didn't work. And over those years, every now and then I would think, maybe I should do the faces deck. And it would sort of step forward, and then it would recede again. But I kept doing all this work in all those years since 2007. So in 2018, back from this giant, Parliament of World Religions, wake up, do this live interview with Simon, and I bring out the prototype deck during the interview. And I start showing them and say, I wonder what you think. There are about 100 people online with him. So can I get your opinion? Do you think this would work as a deck? And the chat lit up. And by the way, just reminding chat, if you've got questions to come along, write them in the chat, and I will, at the end of this sharing program, happy to address your questions or comments, but we'll get more about that later. So it lit up. People said, yes, 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 do the deck. And it's like the deck woke up. From that point, fall of 2018, I started looking through all these faces, photographing, organizing, making photo albums of faces. I've been engaged in that process since then. Here I am where I made a new prototype. I was playing around with what size to make them, whether to have a border or not. I probably chose from thousands of potentials, narrowed it down to hundreds, narrowed it down to maybe printing a couple of hundred, and shuffling them and putting them out and laying them out together, sending them to people, getting their opinions about which faces should be in the deck. Met with people. Particularly, I'd like to just acknowledge David Spangler, who's been a wonderful teacher and friend over the years, who really has such a fine articulation of what this is about. It helps me to articulate a lot of the practices in the book, I think, grow out of the work I've done and the way I've learned to articulate and understand this through my work with David Spangler and the Lorien Association. So one of the things I learned in having other people select was that everyone's going to select a different group. So really, I've got to just in the end, just decide what works for me. And when I checked with David about that, he said, yes, don't worry. The wholeness is what matters. Don't get stuck on, which images are in the deck. Just have it work well as a wholeness. So what happened in the creation was that even though I had hundreds to choose from that were all potentials to be in the deck, I couldn't find a cover. I couldn't find a cover. I couldn't find a cover. We graphically had certain things to make it work on the cover where you put the title on it. There was a very clear graphic thing, but there was also a presence that wanted to be the face of this deck to the world. And I mean, it was just going on and on. It really delayed the process of the deck by months. It wasn't there, and it had to be right. And so there's someone else I was consulting with, my friend Jasmine, who's a sort of a designer brand consultant. And she just kind of hinted, well, have you thought about doing more drawings? It was the last thing I wanted to do because I didn't want to feel like I'm making it for the deck. It would feel like an illustration. I wanted to pull from realnesses, but I just had to. I was forced to. And then I realized, of course, some of the drawings in the deck I probably did do in my studio because some of the faces in the deck, I don't remember when they were done. And it's as valid a place to receive as any. And I'm part of a weekly touch drawing group held by my friend Susan Arnston Russell. It's a little private group where we get together online and draw. And this was the beginning of COVID. That's why we were meeting online. And I said, I can't find a face for the deck. I'm just going to draw faces, thinking maybe it'll just happen one day. Several weeks went by. I said, I don't know if I have it yet. I'm just going to draw faces. And what happened was this was also when George Floyd was murdered and the Black Lives Matter awakening and rising was happening. And I was integrating that as well through the drawing of faces. And I think there's something powerful about that, is that I started opening. I've wanted in the deck to include as many streams of coming from different human lineages. And I was opening to the African lineage, the Black American, the pain. I went through the drawings of the pain and a transformative process. And I started drawing every single day. So it was in the height of all that intensity. I was doing these drawings and it felt like I was sitting at the potter's wheel at a certain point. Just put your hands down and do another, put your hands down and do another, showing them to my husband, who was kind of the final, help me decide person. And he saw this one and he went off and said, wait a minute. And he took a photo. He slapped the title on the top and my name on the bottom, did a little design and said, what do you think about this? And it was just like, yes. And now when I say why, because I think through that process, I arrived, first of all, at a healed presence, at a presence that wanted to look out and greet you and be with you. A presence that's not threatening, that could be the face of the deck and invite people to it, and also has some universality in its facial structure. It's not totally identifiable racially. I've kind of integrated, possibly, it's not possible to do it completely because there's no such thing as this, but as universal as I could find here. And so that's how this whole other unfolding and then other drawings I did during that time period also ended up in the deck. So the deck changed even the last minute. It was this time last year that new images were coming in and the whole deck was reshuffling. And there I am. Then I had to write the book. And again, Ross came in, I'm wrapped in my blanket. I'm saying, okay, surround me, help me write this book. He just came in, snapped the picture, and walked out the door. They're the best pictures, not posed. Kind of like the one that Ruth took in the middle of Fairy Congress Field. So now take a breath. I am going to do a little shift here, because we're going to move into a sharing of all the images in the deck. It'll be 7 or 8 minutes. It'll be a time for you to just sit back, relax, and experience a flow of all the beings in the deck. And I'm going to shift my position, shift my microphone, because I'm going to be playing music live. You will see me, so I'm about to do that. So let's just take a moment while I do that, and I will begin in just a moment. Ready to begin. So, hello, I'm back. Thank you for thank you for being with me through that journey. I'm open to hearing what you have to share. I can, if anyone has a question right now, put it in your chat. Also, if you want to take your times, do I see these beings in my mind's eye? No. Good question. Thank you. I don't see them. That's going back to the Helen Keller. I actually feel like it's an inner sensing of a slight shape. I don't see a whole form. I don't see a whole being. I've never actually just seen a being like some people do. But I feel an impulse when I'm drawing to move, a shape impulse. So it's not exactly seeing, but it's sensory shape. And I follow that. It's never the whole thing. It's only the beginning of it. It's the beginning of the image. And I have to draw it like when I demonstrated in the opening. I feel the beginning, I feel the eyes, I follow it around, I track what I feel, and so it becomes visible as I'm drawing it. I don't have a wholeness, just the moment of what I'm doing. So hopefully that is an answer for you. Thank you. Do I get a name or a talent or focus in them? I get them. My sensing is the drawing. That's the thing that I receive. You will get something else. My hope is that I get a presence. And I've never gotten a name either. It's not my orientation. Doesn't mean that they won't give you a name that's appropriate for you to receive. And that's why I didn't want to identify them in a concretized manner in the deck, because these are now portals. The drawings are portals. They're places you can reflect. You can reflect to open to a subtle presence that's appropriate for you to connect with in that moment. And so different people will sense them in different ways. Some people will be writing, reflective writing, and will hear things being said. The guidebook gives you lots of ideas of ways to start that process. And something that people have not yet discovered, not very many have discovered, I created 2 13-minute audios that there's 2 places right inside the guidebook that tell you how to find them on the website. One is an audio with the music, and I have a script I wrote to guide you into a deep experience of gazing at one drawing, one card, and finding your way. You might name it. You might get writing. You might feel movement. You might just get an insight or a sense of love and connection. So these audios guide you into going more deeply with the faces in the deck. The second audio, you place them in a circle, and it gives you an experience of being with this wholeness of this council of beings. And so hopefully that will help you find your way, because I don't have all gifts and talents. I kind of joke, I feel like I'm deaf, dumb, and blind, like Helen Keller, but I can feel through touch. You're going to have your own and can develop. My hope is it will help people to develop their own skill set, to attune not only to the cards, but to the life in the planet and to the life in nature and to the subtle beings who are here wanting more connection with our humanness, because this is my greatest hope for the deck, that it will assist in creating a bridge between the infinitude of wisdom and life that is not in human form, that we may come into greater relationship with all these levels of life on the planet and beyond, in the wholeness of which we are a part, that we can expand our sense of relationship, because I think that's what has to happen for humanity to make it through this time. And this deck is my offering and my gift for that purpose. Have you ever sat to draw and not had a face come through in that moment? Oh, certainly. I mean, although I would say faces are my mandala, I can always draw my face. I can do it anytime I want. Sometimes they feel alive. That's the difference. I can draw them and they'll feel a little more like effort. It's those moments where it just feels like they're happening. I can't quite control that, whatever, when I get in tune enough to feel this relational way of doing it. And also, I don't only draw faces. If you look more I have galleries and galleries and galleries. The website, web links will be, all over the place. And explore, because there's all kinds of images. So I start with myself. I always start with my own sense, and maybe a simple thing of a feeling in my arm, and I'll just start with that gesture and see what wants to come. But there's certainly a range of feeling what we would call inspired, and that you just got to keep doing it even when I don't feel inspired. That's, I think, the key in any creative practice, is to do it and make yourself available for the times where something bigger just happens. It feels beyond my personal self-control and feels more relational and self-existent. That's the beautiful, inspired moments, but I have to keep doing it to make myself available to that, even when I don't feel it. When you draw the faces, is it in one sitting? Yes. I'm glad I had one video of me drawing up top of the mountain. I'm not sure if some people joined in late. It'll all be in the video. It might take just a few minutes to draw one face. Those always happen in sitting, and they usually happen in series. I will have actually been drawing and drawing and drawing. I'll sit for an hour and draw. I'll sit for an hour and a half and draw. And in that time, there'll be lots of drawings, not all faces, figures, shapes, different things that happen in my drawing attunement. And the face will be one among a series. So that's the power of this process of touch drawing. And again, I do teach online workshops if anyone wants to learn how to do it yourself. Online, let's see, your drawings are so positive. Had anything dark and malevolent come through? I generally, there is pain. Obviously, there's pain on the planet. There's some people, when I chose the soul cards, I actually I selected a range of feelings. So I consciously selected some in the soul cards that express some of the challenges of being human. We'll put it that way. I have never felt a malevolent being coming into me. I've never felt in any way, taken by any being. It's just standing in relationship with them. And there tends to be loving presence, really. Sometimes it's strange, sometimes it's unfamiliar, but that doesn't mean it's evil or bad. And I don't deny that there are beings that might be, not healthy to relate to. And actually in the guidebook, I was careful about that, because maybe my psyche has an attunement that keeps things, healthy, but I don't know who will work with this deck. And I always say, start with your own being, get strong in your own center. You're opening to just meet and connect. And then you always, at the finish of working with a deck, even if it's just for an instant, you come back to your own center. So we have a place of meeting. There's like a boundary zone where one center of consciousness meets another, and where we can connect. And I've never felt anything that is coming over me in a manner that feels unhealthy or dangerous. I love knowing you draw. Even when you don't feel inspired, do you sit down to draw at the same time each day? That's a good question. I'm not practiced in that manner. I can say that I've been doing touch drawing since 1974. So I haven't counted how many years that is. It's a lot of years. So it's been I have different relationships to it at different times. There have been time periods where I draw every single day. When I was a mother and my daughter was in school, I was out here in the studio pretty much every single day. I have a weekly drawing group right now, and I sit with this circle and draw. I recommend finding a friend to draw with. And then it's so embedded in me that when there are things that happen that I feel a purpose to draw, I draw. I often draw around the passings of people. Again, it's a threshold process. So I recently have a couple of times done touch drawings in the last very recent weeks around people passing over to the other side, people dying, and in my way of personal processing and also attuning and opening and being supportive in their passage. So I don't do it every day at this point in my life, but I keep coming back to it. It's there for me. It's such a part of my life. Well, so please continue the conversation. I'm really interested in beyond questions, things that might be a little hard to share in this quick chat way. So I would love to see comments, thoughts, your insights, your wisdoms, your sense of what this deck is. Please write in the comment areas after, say in YouTube, in the comment areas and Facebook, and I will read and respond and be connected with this conversation. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's Shanti. Hi, Shanti. So I haven't been paying attention to who's watching or anything. I'm so into the thing. I'm so glad this is being recorded, Deb, and your articulation of your work has been so clear and inspiring in this presentation. Have known you for 33 years, and I learned new elements of your life and journey today. Thank you for your deep wisdom and dedication and commitment to this profound work. These two friends who have just posted have been dear, dear supportive friends in my life. So thank you for being here for me today. Really appreciate that support of community. So we will close, but I will keep tracking in the comments section, even if it's tomorrow or later or in a few weeks. I'm going to be putting, this is going to be online, the recording. So if you missed the live, you can watch it and be writing in the future. There's the links to find out about Portals of Presence, and just simply touchdrawing.com. And also order them from your local store. If you have like a spiritual bookstore that sells crystals and has some decks, ask them about Portals of Presence. Ask them about soul cards. They may already have them because they're well distributed. And we want to support those local stores to exist, or go online to online services and write reviews, because that really, really helps. All the ways that you can find the deck, you can buy the deck, and please share them. When you get them, share them in your social media, because that really helps. Write your own wisdoms. If they've got messages that they want to share, you can write them and post them. You have permission to post them, and just let them live creatively in your life and allow you to do your blessing of your wisdom to the world and how you respond to these beings, because they will be happy to be engaged with you. I know it's way bigger than me. Thank you for your presence today. Bye-bye.